Roll up, roll up, roll up. We've got some more Keir Starmer nonsense. Again, he's been doing the rounds this morning. And of course, as always, making a fool of himself. We've in fact got a few news hosts actually pushing him and calling him out on his bullshit. We're going to be going through a couple from this morning. Some of my favourite moments is that Keir Starmer, he goes, in the first interview that we're going to watch, he goes, "We've got a scheme in place to bring bills down for millions of families, and we will do other measures to bring bills down." The news host says energy bills have gone up, Prime Minister, and he goes, "I appreciate that, and our job is to bring them down." He, of course, as well blamed, or is now dubbing the migrant boats that are crossing the channel as Farage boats. His obsession runs deep, and as always makes an absolute fool of himself. But let's have a watch of these videos, guys. But as always, please do hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for more. Let's have a watch of the first interview of 3. Here we go.
I want to take the wind out of your sails, Prime Minister, but why do you think you're so unpopular?
I think that for 14 years under the last government, people really suffered. Their wages didn't go up materially, they didn't feel better off, their public services were decimated. We won a victory last July, a landslide victory, on the basis that we would change, renew and take our country forward. I always said that would take time, but I sense and understand the frustration from people who say, get on with it.
You asked voters to judge you on whether they're going to feel better off.
Yes.
Already, many are not feeling better off.
Obviously, we have got a scheme in place to bring bills down for millions of families, not everybody, I accept, and we will do other measures to bring those bills down.
Energy bills have gone up, Prime Minister.
I appreciate that, and our job is to bring them down.
But saying that you're going to bring them down when you've had 14 months in government.
I know how it's bearing down on people. We're moving as fast as we can on this.
Now we've got a £30 billion black hole. You promised you would stabilise the economy. The black hole's massive. Who's going to pay this time? Are you going to stick to your manifesto commitment not to increase tax, national insurance and VAT on working people?
The manifesto stands, and since we've been in power...
Up until and including the budget?
Of course, we stand by the manifesto.
So you won't increase national insurance or income tax or VAT on working people?
We stand by the manifesto.
You've described one of Reform's policies as racist.
The divide at the next election will be between Labour and Reform, and that means it will be between patriotic national renewal, where we fix our problems and take our country forward, and where I, as Prime Minister, want to serve the whole of our country, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, or Reform, which will divide our country, toxic division, and Reform who doesn't want to fix the problems because they are feeding off grievance. It's a fundamental choice about who we are as a country. It's actually bigger than the Labour Party.
Do you accuse people who are considering voting reform of being racist?
No, not in the slightest.
But if they're voting for a party which has racist policies, what does that make them as voters in your view?
Many people are thinking of voting for reform, want to make sure we've secured our borders, quite right too. That is fundamentally different to Nigel Farage saying he wants to deport migrants who are lawfully here, who've been here for years, working in our schools, in our hospitals, running businesses, who are our neighbours.
That's the racist policy in your view.
That will tear our country apart. It goes to the heart of who we are as a country. We are a diverse country. We've had people coming from different countries for many years. They are part of who we are. And what he says about deporting people who are lawfully here, not illegally here, lawfully here,
that's the policy you consider
a shudder through the spines of many, many people.
I look forward to seeing you next year, Prime Minister. Thanks very much.
Look forward to it.
I don't remember this in the manifesto, what Farage said. I don't remember him saying he's just going to deport anything. I think he has literally just ran with one word and now is just trying to gaslight a nation into them believing that. He didn't say that. He wants to mass deport illegal immigrants that are currently in the country. I don't think that's an issue whatsoever, and I don't think it's something that Keir Starmer should try and manipulate. But again, look, in that interview, he's asked, he says, "We've got a scheme in place to bring bills down for millions of families, and we'll do other measures to bring them down." Susanna says that energy bills have gone up Prime Minister. And he says, I appreciate that, and our job is to bring them down. So when is that actually going to come into effect? And as stated, the country is going backwards under his stewardship, and he just keeps on lying and lying and lying. However, this next interview with Keir Starmer this morning is even more worse. And to be fair, this is coming from more of a right-wing interviewer in terms of GB News. But again, now he's dubbing that the migrant boats that are coming over from France as Farage's boats. Yeah, you can't really make that up. Let's have a watch of this one.
Nigel Farage came up, as you're probably aware.
Next one.
I hope
next one.
Prime Minister, thank you for talking to GB News. You finished your speech telling your audience to fly those flags. Why has the left been so uncomfortable with a Union Jack or a St George's flag? What's wrong with being patriotic?
There's nothing wrong with being patriotic, and the left has always been patriotic. Look at the Labour government just after the war, rebuilding our country, a founder member of NATO, which obviously has been the most successful military alliance the world has ever known, and we are patriotic today, a patriotic Labour Party, because we love our country, we love our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, and that's what drives us to not just fix the problems in our country, but to change our country for the better. So I was very glad to see all those flags.
Yeah, so we've been giving them out for GB News. So we've been the Union flags. Yeah,
I put them on the membership card of the Labour Party.
That's right. So back in 2022,
thousands and thousands of people have got their membership card with a Union Jack on it.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay, Nigel Farage has accused you of inciting violence against reform, putting a target on the backs of people backing reform, with a reform rosette. Are you risking inflaming tensions, particularly after the murder of Charlie Kirk?
No, not at all. There is a political fight that has to be had, and it's about the future of our country, because at the next election, the fight will be different to the fight at every other election. It won't be Labour versus the Conservatives, it'll be Labour versus Reform, and that means patriotic national renewal with Labour, where we go forward as the whole of our country, versus the toxic division and decline of Reform, which I think will tear our country apart. I, as Prime Minister, want to serve the whole of my country, my beautiful, tolerant, diverse country that I believe in, whose values I support, and I do not want to see it dragged into division and tearing our country apart, and the politics of grievance, which feeds off the problems rather than fixing the problems. When we are trying to deal with our borders, we're trying to pass the Borders Bill, give more power to law enforcement to deal with the small boats. What does Nigel Farage do? He votes against it. We've got a returns deal with France. What does Nigel Farage do? He says he'd rip it up.
Well, he
We've
would
got
do it
idea cards to stop people working illegally in our economy. He says he would reverse it. He doesn't want to fix the problem, because if the problem is fixed, his reason to exist goes away. So that's why I call it the politics of grievance.
No mention of ID cards in your speech then. Are you going cool on the idea? Of course, I was there on Friday when you mentioned them.
No, I mentioned them, and they were a major part of my speech on Friday. Today I was making, if you like, a bigger... at the beginning of the summer, I said I don't want just a lot of policy in this speech. I want to elevate it to a point where we're having a proper discussion about who are we as a country, what do we believe in, and how do we make sure that we go forward as one country together, united, and not slip into the division, which I fear will be the choice of the next election.
You mentioned a fork in the road. One fork, I suppose, is the Tories and Labour, and the other fork is Reform. So would you be willing to sleep under a Tory government, but not a Reform government, if you see?
I think a lot of people would say, and I would say, I vote Labour, I want a Labour government. Obviously, I'm a Labour Prime Minister. But if there's a Conservative government, there isn't the level of fear that there is if we go for a more right-wing proposition. And in recent weeks and months, there's been a huge amount of incoming to me by people across the country who are fearful that they don't belong in this country. They thought they were part of the Britain we were proud of, and now they feel they don't belong. That is not a good thing for our tolerant, diverse country.
You mentioned small boats. I think that's when you think that's how you'll be judged. You want to stop those boats. Shabana Mahmood's making new steps there. You know, at the weekend, a big boat came in, 125 arrived, maybe 5 have gone back under the one in and one out deal. When will that start getting going? Will you stop the boats by the election?
Well, the returns agreement with France is important because we need to establish that if you come by boat, you will be returned to France. I accept the numbers are low. We had to prove the concept and prove that it could work. We've now done that, but now we need to ramp that up. I would gently point out to Nigel Farage and others that before we left the EU, we had a returns agreement with every country in the EU. And he told the country, make no difference if we left. Well, he was wrong about that. These are Farage boats in many senses that are coming across the channel.
And illegal net migration, that will come down to under your government.
Yes, if you look at, well, we got the Boris wave, didn't we? Yeah. Immigration went up fourfold under the Conservatives in 5 short years. It's unbelievable. And we are bringing it down. You've seen those numbers coming down. Of course, it's right to say that many people come here to contribute to our society, but the numbers need to come down, and we're bringing them down.
Just a very final question. You aren't doing very well in the polls personally. You've seen those polls. Would you stand aside in the national interest if the next person who came in could beat Nigel Farage and lift the poll rating for Labour?
We had an election last July. Yeah. I led my party to a landslide victory. And I never pretended and never said that we could undo 14 years of failure in 12 short months. It was always going to take longer than that. I will lead my party into the next election, and I will be judged at that election on whether living standards have gone up, people feel better off, whether public services are better, particularly the NHS, and whether people feel more safe and secure in their neighbourhood and in their country. Rightly judged against those tests when it gets to the next election.
So, Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us on GB News, and I'll give you a GB News flag later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, look, listen, there was a lot to unpack from that one in particular. Look, he's talking about now turning it into Farage's boats. And I hear him use the terminology just across these two things, these two interviews of diverse UK. I know the way that he's going into this now is that he's going to try and scapegoat. So what their plan is to try and do is make some ground, because they've lost so much ground. What they're trying to do is make some ground in the area where they're now patriots, they're now for their country, and want to try and make what Reform are putting forward as racist, try and gaslight the nation to believing that it's racist, and then, of course, trying to get to the, because the country is, I suppose, really, really diverse, try and turn those individuals against Reform, and then say, well, we're the sort of patriots that are going to be pushing for this diverse community, but we will stop illegal immigration, we will improve living standards and all of these kind of things. However, we've seen over the last 14 months that actually the country is regressing in real time, and I don't feel there is a way back for him whatsoever. The obsession runs deep. Now, again, he's called and asked about his obsession with Nigel Farage here in this interview, which we're going to watch in a second.
Nigel Farage came up, as you're probably aware, and claimed you had an obsession with him. How concerned are you that he says some of your comments could have put him at risk?
No, that's not the case.
Respectfully, that's what Mr Farage says, Prime Minister.
Well, he says a lot of things that I don't agree with. I am concerned to make the argument, and I will, on behalf of the country that I love. This tolerant, beautiful, diverse country where we pull together as a country. I am deeply concerned about Reform because I think they will toxically divide our country and rip it apart. And I'm up for that fight because I think it is the fight of our times. It goes to the soul of who we are as a country.
But you mentioned Mr Farage 5 times, almost as much as you did your late father. You are mildly obsessed, aren't you?
No, not at all. There is a political divide, the like of which we have not seen in this country. You know, we traditionally have Labour versus the Tories. That is not the fight next time around.
More to this point as well, whilst he is absolutely obsessed with Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, he also said something pretty crazy as well, that Angela Rayner, he wants to bring Angela Rayner back into the fold here in the Labour Party. Remember, she just had to resign due to her, of course, not paying stamp duty tax, which is unforgivable in itself. But apparently, yeah, the Labour Party, after Wes Streeting called for her back, Keir Starmer doubled down in this interview saying that he would like to have her back. How can she be coming back after what she did? Just saying that it was a small mistake. She was in charge of imposing stamp duty tax on individuals throughout the country, and she just, again, decided not to pay for it. So there is no way back for Angela Rayner, and she isn't a good politician either, more to that fact. And this just goes to show this last bit, just another bonus before we get into the live chat. As I said, a little interview here between Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, of course, came out recently, spoke about Keir Starmer's attack, all these kind of things, and actually had a guy that votes Labour condemning the comments that that the Labour politicians were making with regard to Farage, calling him racist. We've seen David Lammy yesterday calling him, or being a part of the Hitler Youth, which was disbanded in 1945, just making up absolute bullshit. And they're really trying to run with this propaganda that Reform are racist. They're not racist whatsoever. They really aren't, actually, to be fair. As a right-wing party goes, I do think some of their policies are good, but I think the country needs even more change, personally. And I think Reform are actually a pretty, kind of doing what the Conservatives should be doing. A Conservative party, like a Republican out in America. I don't think they're far right or really right wing at all. I do think the centre right, yes, but I think that's just the bare minimum of what Reform are trying to do. But have a watch of this quickly. This is a Labour sort of voter saying and standing up for Nigel Farage.
I hope I'm joined down the line by Lord Glasman, Labour peer and founder of Blue Labour. Morris, good evening. Welcome to the programme. Just to begin, I think you were quite happy.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. You were quite happy with what the Home Secretary had to say.
Oh, very. But first of all, before we go any further, I'm very proud to be Labour, and I'm very ashamed about the accusation of calling you a racist. I am going around this conference and I'll be writing articles absolutely disputing that. I know, Nigel, that you are not a racist. I know that you spend a huge amount of your time expelling racists from Reform. So please accept my personal apology, not from the party but from me, and I'm honoured to be on GB News. I'm honoured actually to think of you as a friend. So that's a disgrace to me as well.
So yeah, there you have it. That's where sort of Labour are going. Again, Keir Starmer is one of those individuals that is just completely changing and revamping his tune. And this is his new rebrand. I can see it from I'm a businessman. I understand trying to get infiltrate a different market and try and see where you can get the best results for what you are. I can see where he's going, Keir Starmer, and this is the way that he's trying to go. He wants to try and say that they're the patriots, and then Reform are simply racist. So now they're going with sort of dirty tactics of more the way of saying, right, they are racist. The policies are racist, trying to scapegoat the whole nation into thinking that they are racist. David Lammy dropping little hints about Hitler Youth, Vladimir Putin. We all know kind of in the public domain that Russia is the bad guy. If you're thinking about, people that aren't fully awakened, they just watch BBC News and ITV News and they hear things like this from Keir Starmer. Oh, Vladimir Putin and Nigel Farage are together. People are not that smart, they just hear things and they go, oh, and then they will start repeating it to their friends. Oh, did you know Nigel Farage is friends with Vladimir Putin? Oh, did you know Nigel Farage was a part of Hitler Youth when they were younger? They know exactly what they're trying to do here, and it's actually very, very dirty, and it's very, very much lying to try and initiate some control and try and get people to turn against an individual party, which shouldn't be allowed to be done. They can't be doing stuff like that, spreading misinformation. Because the thing is with Nigel Farage and the politics as he uses, he's telling the truth. Keir Starmer talks about it as grievance and a party that jumps onto grievance. The reason why it's a party of grievance, so to speak, is because there's so many issues in the country that aren't being sorted out, nor are going to get sorted out under a Keir Starmer Labour government. So what Nigel Farage says, or Advance UK says, or the Tories say, with regard to barraging and bringing down Labour, it's all true. It's not misinformation. It's not lies. Their Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, did evade stamp duty tax. Labour aren't stopping the boats. Labour are complicit in bringing these hotels and keeping the hotels open. We're seeing the court casing. We are seeing a two-tier justice system. These things that Nigel Farage says and what Reform sort of peddle is stuff that's actually true. It's stuff that we're seeing in real time, having lived under a Labour government for 14 or 15 months. But they cannot do stuff like this and lie and bring other parties down. It's absolutely scandalous and absolutely disgusting. But I'm hoping, well, I'm sure the Reform members or the Reform Party people that back Reform aren't obviously going to be easily persuaded. I don't see where Keir Starmer comes back from here, because it's only going to get worse over the next few months or until the end of Parliament. So yeah, a massive issue there. But yeah, Keir Starmer is resorting. I can see exactly what he's trying to do. Some would say it's smart, but it doesn't really work with him because he's already nuked himself so much. And the fact that he's going to be leading the party till the next election, where he says he will be judged, I think is detriment to the Labour Party getting or making any ground anyway. So I think if you don't want to live under a Labour government, Keir Starmer staying in power is the best thing you can actually want. But then again, David Lammy being Prime Minister, imagine that. Crazy. Let's go into the live chat here and see what people are saying. Dave Mega, a member, big shout out Dave Mega. Two-Tier has been importing his voters and his own personal army of ex-prisoners from third world country. Two-Tier wants civil war, so parabellum civil. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I've always wanted to understand as to why these liberal governments import people in and give them so much easy voting rights is literally what you've just said there. It allows them to import voters. If we're seeing 1,000 people come in a day, they're not going to go against the party that brought them and allowed them to stay. They're not going to protest on the streets to the party that allowed them to stay in a 5-star hotel, the party that gave them 3 meals a day, the party that allowed them to stay within this country despite them coming illegal. And eventually they'll have the voting rights come the next general election. You flood and fill up the country over the next 4 years full of these individuals. All of a sudden, they've got millions and millions of new voters that they can use to bolster their ranks. But yeah, I see that, and that's why he wants it. But certainly, he's sounding the alarm. And again, with left-wing governments, you fully can't trust, and you can't trust them on how far they can go to try and get into power. We've seen it in America with the Democrats and what they were doing, silencing people on social media. They were silencing people. I mean, there was such a big lawsuit just now. I think Donald Trump's just won 25 million from YouTube. He's just won so many other defamation cases as well. But these were the Democrats' tactics, trying to get the mainstream media to turn on an individual, which was Donald Trump, use that power by doing dirty tactics, lying about individuals, lying about them, and then trying to turn the nation against them with lies. And we've seen it happen before. We've already seen it across the pond in America, the United States. We've seen it. We literally just seen it over the last couple of years. And this is the route that they're trying to go down, is to try and lie, make things up about their main competition, which is Nigel Farage at this moment in time. And then, of course, flood their cities, flood their areas with people that are going to vote for them. And the digital ID stuff as well. He's saying, Nigel Farage wants to vote against the digital IDs. There's so much to dissect from all those interviews because they're just nonsense. But he spoke about, Nigel Farage is opposing the digital IDs and he doesn't want to stop illegal immigration. It's the terminology that he uses. He says, Nigel Farage voted against the digital ID, which means he doesn't want to stop people working in the shadow economy. He's a party that preys on grievance. No, because the digital ID is far sinister, and it's actually nothing to do with just the Reform Party. Left-wing lunatics or far left-wing lunatics, Jeremy Corbyn's party, have voted against it. The Lib Dems, who, Ed Davey licks Keir Starmer's arse most of the time, votes against it, doesn't want it being brought in. The Tories and most of the Labour Party don't want the digital ID. So to make it about, Nigel Farage doesn't want to stop the boats and stop illegal working because he doesn't want the digital ID is just stupid. It's so stupid, but I know what he's trying to do. He's just trying to turn people. He's trying to say that Nigel Farage doesn't want to stop this. But the digital ID is far, far, far more sinister. Let's have a little look. You would think they would pay attention to history, new and old, before they burn and crash because they always make the same mistake. Manic says boats equals votes, two-tier Sharia Keir. That rhymes. Simsha says, with the level of intelligence Starmer displays, one wonders how he passed his law exams. Well, he speaks like a lawyer, but he's always for human rights. He's a human rights lawyer. He's always going to choose the global agenda. He's always going to choose the foreign courts over his own country. And I'm sure I've seen it before, that he would choose Davos over Westminster in his own words. Master Mark says the tactics is just keep everyone pissed and enraged. They think we, the people, are thing idiots. We can just tell them, they will do what we tell them. Yeah, you're right. I mean, most people that watch, these sort of channels, or, they get their information on X, they kind of know what's going on in the world, right? They understand that things are happening. If people on X sort of see how the world works. But you got to think, a lot of people actually in the country, if you look at it, 60 million or whatever it is, 80 million, or whatever it is, most of these individuals, actually, think about it, you'll know some friends like this, that they're not really awakened, and whatever they hear on BBC News and ITV News is gospel. I hear people sort of trying to have a conversation with me and say, from small things about talking about, oh, Nigel Farage is a racist still. But if you actually dive into what Nigel Farage says, you can't draw a conclusion to Nigel Farage being a racist. But they get their information from BBC News and ITV News, and then, they draw up a parallel, and they use that to spark the debate. So yes, while many people are awakened, and a lot of people that support reform, yes, they may know about how the world works, there's still a lot of people that are sleeping and still get their information from BBC News, believe it or not. And they would have seen that David Lammy clip yesterday, and all of a sudden, that's all they would have heard was David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, say, "Oh, Nigel Farage is a part of Hitler Youth." You'll hear in your pubs, you'll hear someone say that in a conversation sometimes. Yeah, but Nigel Farage is part of the Hitler Youth. He was a Nazi. And then it progresses with Chinese whispers. And then all of a sudden you get Nigel Farage to, oh, he's a part of the Nazi party. Oh, he was Hitler's right-hand man, despite the time correlations not matching up. But because they get the information from there and just hear sound bites of things, then all of a sudden they completely run with it. It's the same sort of stuff with Andrew Tate, Andrew Tate, the BBC did a great thing, and I know a lot of people won't like Andrew Tate for whatever reason here on this channel, and they can have their own opinion on him, that's fine. But actually, he was just acquitted of all of his charges literally 2 days ago. So, the BBC and the mainstream media do a great job in bringing people down, and bear no responsibility for what they do. So most people now's assumption of Andrew Tate, in particular, is that he's a human trafficker, where he was only accused of being a human trafficker, and actually no charges were actually coming his way. Anyone can be accused of a certain thing, but until they're tried in court and actually prosecuted, then that's when we can say that they're guilty. But again, even now, on an Andrew Tate's perspective, the job that the BBC have done, the mainstream media have done on him, now despite him being acquitted of all of those charges and actually deemed as innocent now, people were still going to run with that saying. They're still going to say, well, he's a human trafficker, he's a rapist, he's all these kind of things, despite him actually ever being charged. And that's the problem, where people get their information just from BBC News and just hold on to sound bites that they hear in the mainstream media. And I know exactly what Labour are trying to do here with Nigel Farage, and it's not a nice thing to do. It's very, very dirty tactics. Simcha says, is Starmer an android ran by very bad AI? Do you know what the whole of the Labour Party seem? They do seem like robots, right? In the way that they speak is robots, but the robot is not charged properly, so the robot's running out of battery. Rachel Reeves speaking the other day was like, they all speak the same, and they all pander off the same sort of script that they're given every single time. I have a smart TV, but it is my monitor and for Netflix and gaming, etc. On Netflix, guys, there's a massive boycott at Netflix, which I might do a live stream in the next couple of hours to talk about it. But yeah, Elon Musk has sparked a massive thing. And to be fair, those of you will probably want to know the news with regard to Netflix and what they're pushing out. It's pretty dark, it's pretty sinister. And yeah, you might think twice about having Netflix after we talk about the news that is coming up. I'll already cover that up a little bit later in for this afternoon's live stream, guys. But that's enough for this live stream. As always, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in the chat. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Look after